The picturesque mansion stood tall, its majestic windows reflecting the evening sun. Emma, Sally, and their respective boyfriends, along with the bubbly Emily, had just checked in for their weekend vacation. They'd won the weekend in a radio competition, and the grandeur of the house seemed too good to be true. The host, Samuel, was a striking young man with dark, intense eyes. He was especially attentive to Emily, giving her lingering glances that felt both curious and piercing. After a grand tour of the mansion and a hearty dinner filled with laughs and tales of the mansion's history, the two couples retired, leaving Emily and Samuel in the grand hall, sipping the last of their wine. Samuel proposed a game of hide-and-seek, citing the mansion's countless hiding spots as perfect for the game. Emily, ever the sport, agreed. As she began counting to 100, Samuel moved with uncanny swiftness to an ancient display case. Inside was an old ornate spear, its silver blade engraved with symbols gleamed eerily. The spear was said to have belonged to his forefather, a feared warrior who was rumored to have committed heinous acts with it. With the spear in hand, Samuel approached the room where Sally and her boyfriend were sleeping. The couple, lost in dreams, met a swift and silent end, the blade ensuring their deaths were painless. As Emily continued her count, her voice echoing through the halls, Samuel moved to Emma and Jack's room. The couple, wrapped in each other's arms, was interrupted by the creaking door. Jack, sensing the impending danger, tried to shield Emma. In the struggle, the room was turned upside down, lamps were thrown, and Jack's valiant attempts to fend Samuel off came to a brutal end with the spear. Emma, with adrenaline pumping through her veins, managed to slip away. The mansion, with its countless corridors, became a maze of terror for Emma. Just when she thought she found a way out, she'd end up in another chilling room filled with portraits that seemed to watch her every move. She finally spotted a staircase leading down, but as she approached, Samuel's silhouette appeared. With a grin, he lunged at her with the spear, catching her off guard. Her scream echoed through the mansion. Hearing the commotion, Emily ceased her count and began searching for her friends. The haunting silence of the mansion was now broken by distant whispers, creaking floorboards, and the chilling wind from broken windows. Samuel's maniacal laughter filled the corridors as his voice echoed, come out, wherever you are." The once grand mansion was now transformed into a chilling playground. As Emily darted through the halls, she could hear the sounds of Samuel's fingers scratching walls and floors, leaving grotesque marks in his wake. The aged wallpaper began to tear under his ferocity, revealing old stains that told tales of horrors past. Suddenly, she felt a cold breath on her neck and turned to find Samuel right behind her, his eyes, wide and crazed, fixated on her with a chilling intensity. "Your turn to hide," he hissed with a horrific grin, showcasing teeth that seemed more animal than human. His chuckles grew louder and more distorted as Emily's heart rate quickened. Trying every door she came across, they were all locked. She realized he had sealed her fate within the house. In a moment of clarity, she remembered the grand fireplace in the main hall. She raced there, hoping to use its hidden exit that she had noticed earlier. As she squeezed through the fireplace's narrow side entrance, she heard Samuel begin his count. 1, 2, 3. With each count, his voice grew more ominous. Emily quickly slid under an old wooden table draped in dusty cloth, her breath ragged. 99, 100. Ready or not, here I come. Samuel's voice boomed, echoing through the house. Emily, peering through a small tear in the cloth, saw his shadow draw closer, but as he was about to lift the cloth, a distant noise diverted his attention. Seizing the opportunity, Emily made a dash for the main entrance, successfully ambushing Samuel and stealing the keys from his belt. Emily slammed the car door shut, her heartbeat resonating louder in her ears. As she turned the ignition, the headlights illuminated Samuel, who was now just a few steps away. His crazed eyes locked onto hers. "You can't escape me," he screamed, brandishing the blood-streaked spear, its ancient markings now even more grotesque under the smear of fresh blood. As she hit the gas pedal, Samuel's manic laughter filled the air, resonating alongside the car's engine. Her rearview mirror showed him chasing, the spear gleaming under the dim moonlight. The gravel from the driveway spit up behind her tires, hitting Samuel and causing him to momentarily shield his face. But even as the mansion's silhouette shrank in the distance, Emily could still hear his chilling laughter and the words, "Our game isn't over." With trembling hands, Emily managed to dial the police. The operator's voice brought a slight relief, assuring her that units were en route. When officers arrived, the grand mansion, usually intimidating in its splendor, now looked forlorn and menacing. Room after room was empty, but a palpable tension hung in the air. As they approached the spear closet, a deep sense of dread settled over them. The door creaked ominously before suddenly bursting open. Samuel, drenched in darkness and wielding his spear, lunged towards the officers. The hallway became a scene of chaos. One officer was caught off guard, the spear piercing his arm. As he fell, he managed to fire a shot. Samuel, in his deranged state, seemed barely affected, but the second officer took aim and let out a barrage of bullets. Samuel, though powerful and relentless, started to waver, his grin turning into a grimace of pain. With a last attempt to attack, he collapsed, the dark corridor echoing with his final twisted laugh. The mansion was swiftly cordoned off, and the horrors of the night began to unfold to the outside world. The townsfolk whispered tales of the haunted mansion, of the echoes of Samuel's laughter and the bloodied spear. Some claimed to have seen a shadowy figure roaming the mansion grounds during moonlit nights. Emily moved far away, seeking to start anew. But the trauma lingered. Every creak in her new home, every whisper of the wind reminded her of that fateful night. Sometimes in the dead of night she'd swear she heard Samuel's voice, distant but clear. Come out, wherever you are." The scars of that night remained, forever etched in her mind. The historic beauty of the college campus was especially vibrant as autumn leaves decorated its pathways. The college's towering buildings cast long, chilly shadows, hinting at the approaching winter. It was the time of year that former students looked forward to, the annual alumni reunion weekend. Leo, having graduated just a year prior, was especially excited to return to his old haunts. Joining him were Jake, his old roommate, Mia, the president of their drama club, Ava, the track star, and her boyfriend Chris, the quiet philosopher of the group. As evening approached, they made their way to Ravenswood Hall, the college's oldest dormitory, which had a certain mystique to it, intensified by the many tales and legends associated with it. The hallways echoed with memories, the walls seemingly whispering secrets of decades past. As laughter and stories filled the air, a new face approached the group. It was Victor, a recent addition to the college faculty, but familiar with its old tales. The group was charmed by his tales of Ravenswood's history and myths, including stories of secret passages and long-lost treasures. As the night deepened and the outside world seemed to fade away, Victor, looking to add some excitement to the evening, suggested a nostalgic game of hide-and-seek. The vastness of Ravenswood, with its numerous rooms and secret nooks, made it the perfect setting. Jake laughed. "Just like old times, huh?" With everyone in agreement, Leo was chosen to be it, and he began his count near the main stairwell. Victor, with a sly smirk, whispered to the rest to make it challenging for Leo. What they didn't notice was the glint in Victor's eye, a hint of a more sinister game afoot. As Leo's count approached 50, Victor discreetly retrieved an ancient-looking ceremonial dagger from a dusty old chest in one of Ravenswood's hidden rooms. It was a relic of the college's darker days, long spoken of but seldom seen. The fun and games were about to take a haunting turn. Ravenswood's once cozy atmosphere now grew more ominous as shadows stretched across the dormitory's worn wooden floors. The weight of the building's age and the stories it held became palpable. Leo, eager to find his friends, noticed the air turning colder, and an oppressive feeling settled around him. The familiar creaks and groans of the building now sounded more menacing. As Leo moved down one corridor, dimly lit by the fading twilight filtering in through stained glass windows, he felt an unusual draft. Curious, he followed it to a room he didn't recognize from his student days. The door, slightly ajar, revealed a scene straight out of a nightmare. Candles arranged in a peculiar pattern illuminated the center of the room where Victor stood, the ceremonial dagger glinting ominously in his hand. Before Leo could process the scene, he heard a muffled cry. To his horror, he saw Jake tied to an ancient chair, a look of sheer terror in his eyes. The room was adorned with symbols and relics that hinted at rituals from a forgotten time. As Victor chanted words in a language Leo couldn't recognize, the room grew even colder and shadows seemed to dance on the walls. Horrified, Leo retreated, aiming to free his friend, but not before finding help. He tiptoed past, praying Victor wouldn't notice. The once familiar corridors now felt like a labyrinth. Just as he felt he was making headway, a chilling scream echoed through the halls. Racing toward the source, he found Mia, her face drained of color, hiding in a janitor's closet. She whispered about having witnessed Ava's capture, her voice quivering with fear. Ava and Chris were nowhere to be found, but the evidence of a struggle was clear. An overturned lamp, scattered books, and a pair of glasses lay broken. Every so often, distant whispers and Victor's manic laughter would pierce the silence, making the atmosphere even more chilling. The reality hit Leo hard. Ravenswood's legends weren't just stories. They were grim truths from the college's dark past, and Victor, whether driven by madness or some sinister purpose, was enacting them in the present. Determined, Leo and Mia decided to join forces to rescue their friends and confront the looming threat. The dim corridors of Ravenswood University seemed endless. As Leo and Mia desperately navigated the twisting hallways, they could feel the heavy weight of anticipation. The chilling echoes of Victor's deranged laughter grew louder, a stark contrast to the muffled pleas of their captured friends. Reaching the ritual room once more, the sight was more horrifying than Leo remembered. Ava and Chris were now bound to wooden pillars, their faces pale and streaked with tears. Victor, having changed into a crimson robe, was engrossed in his chant, a ceremonial dagger held high. The room was thick with a mix of fear and incense smoke, the air pulsing with an energy that seemed almost alive. As Victor moved towards Ava, Leo, filled with a mix of rage and terror, lunged at him. The two grappled fiercely, the ancient dagger glinting menacingly as it slashed through the air. Mia, quick on her feet, worked on untying Jake while keeping a watchful eye on the struggle. Every blow exchanged between Leo and Victor echoed the battle between good and evil, light and darkness. In the chaos, Chris managed to break free from one of his restraints. Using all his strength, he threw a heavy, ancient tome at Victor. Distracted, Victor stumbled back, giving Leo the opportunity he needed. With a well-placed kick, the dagger flew from Victor's grasp, skidding across the room and embedding itself in the wooden floor. But Victor was far from defeated. With a scream of rage, he tackled Leo, causing both of them to crash into a table laden with ritualistic artifacts. Glass shattered, sharp shards flying everywhere. One of those shards found its mark on Victor's neck, causing him to fall back, clutching the wound, his once maniacal eyes now wide with terror. Amidst the shattered glass and smoky remnants, Leo, panting heavily, surveyed the room. His eyes, clouded with a mix of relief and horror, settled on Chris's lifeless body. While Chris had managed to momentarily distract Victor, the cost had been fatal. A sharp splinter from one of the shattered artifacts had pierced Chris's chest, silencing his brave heart forever. Ava, still tied to the pillar, was bleeding profusely. Victor had made sure she'd suffer before attempting to finalize his dark ritual. Her once vibrant eyes were now dull with pain and shock, but the fight in her wasn't gone. As Mia and Jake rushed to her side, trying desperately to stem the blood flow, she managed to whisper, "The library. There's an old medical kit." Leo, reinvigorated by a rush of purpose, raced to the library, every ticking second feeling like an eternity. The college's age-old library, usually a haven for learning, now bore an eerie atmosphere. The moonlight streaming through the arched windows painted silver patterns on the floor, guiding Leo to the ancient medical kit. Upon his return, Mia had managed to cut the ropes binding Ava, revealing the deep gashes on her wrists. With swift hands and racing hearts, they cleaned and bandaged her wounds, praying that they weren't too late. As the first light of dawn began to seep into the room, the full extent of the horror of that night became painfully clear. Chris lay still, a tragic hero amidst the chaos, while Ava, though alive, was barely holding on. The trauma of the ordeal was evident on their faces. What was supposed to be a regular evening at Ravenswood University had turned into a nightmarish battle for survival. Leo, while deeply scarred, had shown incredible resilience, becoming the beacon of hope for his friends in their darkest hour. The legend surrounding the old college had found a new, harrowing chapter. Leo would forever carry the heavy weight of that night's memories, recounting the tale of bravery, sacrifice, and the evil that lurked in the shadows of Ravenswood. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, deepening shadows across the barren landscape. The air was thick with an unnatural silence, broken only by the soft hum of the car's engine. A group of college friends on a spontaneous road trip found themselves driving through an almost surreal stretch of desert. No sign of civilization, no other cars, just an endless expanse of sand and rock. Suddenly, an electric neon sign emerged on the horizon, flickering intermittently, displaying the deserted Oasis Motel. It stood as an anachronistic beacon amidst the desolation, its lights slightly hazy from the dust. The establishment, with its pastel-colored walls and cracked windows, looked like it belonged to another era, lost in time. Curiosity piqued, they decided to make a pit stop. As they parked, they noted the eerie stillness. There were no other cars, and the wind carried with it a faint whisper, almost like hushed conversations from long ago. The entrance was adorned with wind chimes made of old keys, creating a melancholic tune as they blew in the wind. Stepping inside, the decor seemed frozen in the 1970s, with avocado green armchairs, wood paneling, and a jukebox that looked like it hadn't played a tune in decades. The faint scent of old perfume and stale tobacco lingered in the air. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, but fatigue grounded their decision to stay. Behind the counter was an elderly man, his skin as weathered as the desert outside. His deep-set eyes held a glint of mischief and nostalgia. Introducing himself as Norman, he welcomed them with a story of the motel's glory days, alluding to countless visitors with countless tales. With a sly smile, he handed over the keys and whispered about the local legend of a hide-and-seek game that turned sinister, a story only brave souls dared to delve into. The group, half intrigued and half uneasy, made their way to their rooms. The corridor was long, dimly lit by flickering bulbs, with faded photographs lining the walls, capturing moments of guests long gone. The eeriness was palpable, but the allure of the motel's mysteries was undeniable. Little did they know that their stay at the deserted Oasis would become a night to remember. As the friends settled into their respective rooms, an underlying sense of unease began to creep over them. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing patches of older, even more out-of-place designs beneath. Every room seemed to hum with a quiet energy, like whispers just out of earshot. In one room, Alex, the adventurous spirit of the group, discovered a dusty old journal underneath the bed. Its pages were filled with the excited scribbles of various guests recounting their stay at the motel. Curiously, many entries seemed to fixate on the mysterious hide-and-seek game mentioned by Norman. One particular entry caught his eye. "Played the game last night. It wasn't what we thought. The shadows, they moved. It felt like someone was watching. I heard laughter, but no one was there. I wish we never played." Emily, in the room next door, was intrigued by faint melodic music seemingly coming from the room's old radio, a radio that wasn't plugged in. She could discern distant voices, laughing and chatting, evoking an atmosphere of a lively motel from decades past. Down the hall, Jake and Lucy found a series of black and white photographs hidden behind a loose floorboard. The pictures showed guests enjoying themselves at the motel, but one image was unsettling. It depicted a group of people, blindfolded, standing around a figure marked with an X. The figure's face, eerily familiar, bore a terrified expression. The friends congregated in the largest room to share their discoveries. They were divided between fascination and growing trepidation. The idea of playing the hide-and-seek game seemed alluring, almost beckoning them. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. In the chilling silence, they could almost hear the echo of footsteps from bygone games, urging them to join. With a mixture of excitement and apprehension, the friends decided to indulge their curiosity. They set the rules. The lobby would be the base, and whoever was it would count there. Every other location in the motel was fair game. Lucy, with her playful spirit, volunteered to be the first seeker. She tied a scarf around her eyes, and the group scattered, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. As Lucy counted, the dim lights of the motel flickered. The wind outside began to howl, shaking the windows and making the old sign creak. The atmosphere grew dense, almost palpable. Jake hid in a broom closet, holding his breath as he heard Lucy's muffled count. 57, 58, 59. Emily tucked herself beneath a bed, feeling the cold floor against her skin and the cobwebs brushing her face. Alex squeezed behind an old vending machine, its hum masking his breathing. Lucy shouted, "Ready or not, here I come." The hunt was on. However, the motel seemed different now. The walls echoed with whispering voices, making it hard to distinguish Lucy's footsteps from the other strange noises. Jake, trying to control his breathing, heard soft whispers outside the closet door. Come out," they teased. He brushed it off as a trick of his imagination, but then the closet door handle began to turn. Emily, peering from beneath the bed, saw shadowy figures passing by. It was clear they weren't Lucy's. She held back a scream as a cold hand briefly touched her ankle. Alex felt a presence nearby. He could sense someone or something watching him from the dark corners of the motel. As Lucy searched, she felt an increasing sense of unease. The game was no longer fun, but something far more sinister. She called out to her friends, suggesting they stop and regroup, but her voice seemed to be swallowed by the thick, eerie silence of the motel. Lucy, feeling isolated and anxious, made her way to the lobby, thinking it would be a neutral point to regroup. The once inviting fireplace now cast odd, long shadows across the room, making the vintage wallpaper seem as if it were closing in on her. Alex emerged from his hiding spot, his eyes darting around, having heard Lucy's call. He recounted to her the disturbing sensation of being observed by unseen eyes. The two of them, on edge but resolved, decided to find their friends. As they wandered the halls, the muffled sound of an old song wafted through the air. Following it, they stumbled upon a locked room with the number 13 etched into the door. The tune seemed to be originating from there. Meanwhile, Emily, after escaping her haunting encounter beneath the bed, discovered an old photo album in one of the rooms. The dusty pages revealed pictures of guests from long ago, with dates ranging from the 1940s to the late 1970s. As she flipped through, a chilling realization washed over her. Some of the faces in the photos eerily resembled the shadowy figures she had glimpsed in the corridors. Lucy, feeling isolated and anxious, made her way to the lobby, thinking it would be a neutral point to regroup. The once inviting fireplace now cast odd, long shadows across the room, making the vintage wallpaper seem as if it were closing in on her. Alex emerged from his hiding spot, his eyes darting around, having heard Lucy's call. He recounted to her the disturbing sensation of being observed by unseen eyes. The two of them, on edge but resolved, decided to find their friends. As they wandered the halls, the muffled sound of an old song wafted through the air. Following it, they stumbled upon a locked room with the number 13 etched into the door. The tune seemed to be originating from there. Meanwhile, Emily, after escaping her haunting encounter beneath the bed, discovered an old photo album in one of the rooms. The dusty pages revealed pictures of guests from long ago, with dates ranging from the 1940s to the late 1970s. As she flipped through, a chilling realization washed over her. Some of the faces in the photos eerily resembled the shadowy figures she had glimpsed in the corridors. Jake, having narrowly escaped the whispers at the closet, found himself in the motel's abandoned diner. Amidst the decay, a single table was set as if expecting guests, a remnant of a meal from long ago, never finished, with 4 plates and 4 chairs. The group, now united but drenched in fear, decided to make one last dash for the exit. But as they reached the lobby, they found the main entrance door had vanished. Instead, a graffitied message on the wall read, "The game isn't over." A chilling laugh echoed throughout the motel. Emily and Jake were separated from Lucy and Alex as unseen hands seemed to pull them into the shadows of the winding corridors. Lucy, desperate, grabbed Alex's hand, pulling him towards the back exit they remembered from their earlier exploration. But Alex's grip suddenly went limp. Turning, Lucy watched in horror as he was dragged into one of the rooms, the door slamming shut behind him. Heart pounding, Lucy stumbled upon the motel's old service elevator. Without thinking, she slammed the button, and as the rusty doors creaked closed, she could hear the whispering voices growing louder, drawing nearer. The elevator jolted to the ground floor, the door opening to reveal the back exit. Wasting no time, Lucy burst out into the cold night air, leaving behind the haunting embrace of the motel. Lucy, using the last of her phone's battery, called the police. When they arrived with her at the scene, what they found sent shivers down their spines. The motel, which had seemed functional just hours before, now looked as if it had been abandoned for decades. The windows were boarded up, the paint was peeling off, and the entire establishment was overrun with ivy and decay. Search teams scoured the premises for Lucy's friends, but they found no sign of them. All that remained was a tattered hide-and-seek rulebook, eerily similar to the one Lucy's group had found, with an added note, "For the next players." The motel's sinister history seemed to live on. Though Lucy had escaped, the memory of that night and the haunting whispers of the past would forever echo in her mind. Every shadow, every whispering wind would remind her of the chilling game and the friends she lost to the deserted Oasis. In the shadows of the night, if our tales from unsettling horror stories gave you a fright, press like and let it be known. Subscribe, so you're never alone in this haunting journey, and share, so others too can be wary. Until our next sinister tale, stay dark, dear listener.